Mike,
Hey, how are you?
thanks. Good. How are you?
Good, very good.
Okay, so this major global outage, a lot of people are kind of freaked out a little bit, but it kind of highlights how dependent so many systems are on the same provider, the same software. I mean, does this expose a vulnerability here?
Unfortunately, that's one of the major concerns is every time you have these types of outages, and though security experts are now saying that this is not as a result of a cybersecurity attack, it nonetheless indicates that there's this huge symmetry between where the technology intersects with the operational technology. So IT, OT. And then when you have common platforms like Microsoft, and then you have various applications working on that, and a lot of people using the same type of applications and technologies, then you have this commonality, and if you have a compromise, a vulnerability, an exploit, then what you have is these cascading effects, which is what we're seeing across the world today, right now.
And so, kind of put this into perspective for people because it was, I mean, CrowdStrike was saying it was due to a faulty update to any system that uses or to Microsoft Windows. So when you think about, I mean, like any PC really is using Microsoft Windows, right? Is that kind of to kind of understand the magnitude? Because at first, I think like, well, when planes were grounded, I'm like, why are planes grounded or why are hospital systems
Right.
having issues? It's because of these PCs. It's like they've cornered the market, really.
Well, certainly, if you talk to the folks at Apple, Google,
Right.
Microsoft, Amazon, they'll be saying, "Well, no, it's a good thing to have this kind of scale because we can fix things quickly." Well, we'll see if they can at this point in time. But there's been a lot of outages recently that have caused a lot of concern within the security community. For example, 911 have been going down in the springtime, really kind of all over the U.S. There's concerns about hacks again with some of the telecoms that happened. Verizon had issues, AT&T, things like that. And these are all connected technologies that we all use every day. And so the other thing that a lot of people need to recognize is that not all software updates or not all software and technology investments are the same. Some companies don't really spend the kind of money to do the upgrades because they don't have it in their budget, or they do it at different timetables. So a lot of airlines, believe it or not, still use kind of legacy technologies in certain aspects, not as it relates to flights, but in terms of everything else, in terms of scheduling, in terms of booking, things like that. So it's going to take time for some of these industries to get up to par. But again, to your point, if you're all on the same platform, you do have shared vulnerabilities.
Mm. And so how can, I mean, I guess this highlights the need to really, for companies to do their emergency preparedness in case of this, because we become so reliant on this technology. It stalled a lot of services because people forgot or never, don't know how to work without it.
Yeah. So these technologies need to be updated continuously as things evolve. You'll see that all the time that there will be a new upgrade that you have to for your phone or for your operating networks, and that's a really important thing to do. But again, if you do it and it's not aligned the right way, you can have this type of an issue. The question here is how fast can you identify it? How can you isolate it? How can you assess its impacts? And then how can you do workarounds? So in the near term, change the direction of the traffic, change the applications that are interfacing with it at this point in time, the critical applications. And then of course try to work the fix. The irony, of course, is that it's an upgrade, so therefore it should be fixing things that are already existing problems. But then again, if it's misaligned, it could cause more problems.
And you may not know the answer to this, but kind of to visualize it, is it just, one guy writing code and then doing the update?
not with a major company like Microsoft. It's many, many, many coders, and these things are scheduled. They're in development. Typically what happens is when you develop a software application, you create and you then test it in what they call a development environment. They call it dev environment before you go operational. So you're supposed to get all the kinks out before you actually introduce it, quote, into the wild, which is what you necessarily do when you update these types of massive systems itself. But it's not one computer geek sitting in their basement doing the code. This is a very very strategic and scheduled updates.
And so there be some kind of system in place that will alert them that this is a faulty update?
Yeah.
Or you don't know until you find out.
That's actually been a bone of contention for the longest time, and that a lot of times people would put out software that had embedded in it malware, but not able to find it or test it before it actually goes to market. And a lot of people sat back and said, wait a minute, whoa, shouldn't we have the same types of requirements we have for any type of consumer product that goes into the market that we're going to buy? Shouldn't it be error-free? Shouldn't it be malware-free before you put it out there? And of course, the industries have pushed back and said that's kind of impossible, because they have something known as a zero-day exploit, which means that before you can patch a vulnerability, the bad guys have already noticed it and have already gone in and exploited it. So they said it's kind of impossible to do it before you can test all of the different permutations. When you're developing software, there are a million different ways it can interact within an environment, within an enterprise. And to be able to figure out all of those possible permutations of vulnerabilities before you then put it out again into the marketplace, it's really, really difficult, really hard. And so the software folks don't do it.
Now that is interesting. And we're still seeing disruptions. This only happened a few hours ago, but it's not like it's over yet. Some systems are up running, some are still not. Do you think it was too quick for CrowdStrike to say definitively this is not a cyber security breach?
As I say, CrowdStrike has had a great reputation, and they provide a lot of good services. It's hard to know what they were basing it on. I would much rather be seeing what the NSA is saying, or CISA at the Department of Homeland Security. It's always difficult to have a private sector group talk about things, because you assume part of it is classified. But certainly the people I'd really love to hear about from right now is Microsoft. Mm. What are they saying? What are they saying? The root cause analysis is showing. What are they saying in terms of the fixes as they work with the various applications? And then how are they going to prevent it from happening in the future? That's the other thing going forward.
Right. We want to make sure this does not happen again. What added security, they're going to include, because I think the question a lot of people have right now is their information secure?
Right.
If their credit cards get hacked, or, is there information out there right now? Should people be worried about that?
So this doesn't seem to be impacting that type of information. This really seems to be in your operating network. In other words, being able to log on, being able to get emails or use Zoom. Those are the things that are being impacted right now. I've not seen anything that talks about data compromise. And of course, if it was a data compromise, then it very likely is a cyber issue, cyber tech issue, as opposed to just an outage.
And is this similar to, we talked a little bit about, the SolarWinds issue, Log4j vulnerability. Are you seeing some similarities?
Right. So people will remember, if they Google the phrase Log4j or SolarWinds, they'll see that these were applications that were commonly used, and they were compromised, and therefore you had cascading technology impacts as a result of that, and you had to fix them very quickly across multiple networks across the world. So it talks about these cascading effects, and the fact that if you're relying on this type of technology and you have these very commonly used applications, then there's a shared vulnerability.
There you go. And I want to go back to what you mentioned about the software. Not every software does not have is free from malware when you first get it. How does the malware get into it to begin with?
Well, it's not necessarily the malware is inside of it. When you have a patch, it means that you're fixing a vulnerability that exists within the software as it was developed. It's not necessarily malware. The malware comes in when the bad guys that are scanning applications continuously find a vulnerability and then go and insert malware and do the attack. That's where the malware comes in. So the software developers are not embedding malware in their applications. It's the fact that they are not able to fix all of the vulnerabilities that could be exploited once the software gets into, again, the wild.
Hmm. Or do they typically know that these vulnerabilities exist?
No, they don't. Otherwise, they would have fixed them before
Hmm.
they
Okay.
put them out there.
So it's so crazy to me to think about that there are people out there that can find these hidden vulnerabilities
Yeah.
that these experts, smart, software developers themselves don't know exist.
So the world is now divided into a lot of different enemies and allies, and the enemies are looking to exploit any opportunity that they can. And so we know that in China, for example, there's a whole military action unit that is designed to be offensive on cybersecurity. The same with North Korea,
Mhm.
the same with Russia. So they're always looking for these types of vulnerabilities that they can exploit. And moreover, what happens is this is a scanning that's done continuously. And I have bad news for everybody. It's going to get worse with the advent of artificial intelligence that will be able to anticipate when a particular piece of software is now introduced that these will be the vulnerabilities that they can exploit. So therefore, actually anticipating the vulnerabilities and making the attacks much more effective. That's the next shoe to drop in the security world that we're all very concerned about. Now, of course, they're using AI to defend against that as well. So
We'll see how that AI digital battle comes into
right.
play here. And I think the biggest reason why people have get afraid or they have this fear when people hear about these outages, just viewers or anyone across the country, across the world, is sometimes they feel helpless. And when people feel like they can't do anything to protect themselves, that's where they get a little nervous. So is there anything people can do right now or take away from this where they know that what they're doing is keeping themselves safe?
Well, practically speaking, I wouldn't head to an airport right now. If you've got a flight, try to get in contact with the airlines the old-fashioned way. Get on the phone, see what's happening with your flights. Same with any type of transportation right now, because there's going to be things are pretty scrambled right now at this moment. The second piece, though, in terms of your own finances, it's always good to check what's going on in your accounts. Balance statements that sometimes I get paper for statements, so I just have kind of a backup so I know what's going on, and just watch, as usual with any type of cyber issue. Make sure you pay attention to are there Amazon boxes showing up with somebody else's name on your doorstep? Are you getting credit card charges that you don't recognize? Are things happening with your account that you don't have any control over? Or if you see funny things happening on your networks, particularly at businesses, do you see data going in the middle of the night somewhere else that you didn't authorize? These are all things that you have to pay attention. And of course, that old phishing thing. If you see an email that basically says you've won $100, click on this, or this is your bank, it looks just like it, and give us your social security number. Those things are usually, nobody's going to ask for your security number online. No one's going to do that. So if that happens, that's a red flag. And the thing that is always great is get a phone number and then call the person and then call your bank.
Yeah, cybersecurity, I think hopefully it should become, people should get used to it, just like looking both ways before you cross the street. These should be things they get used to doing and should be second nature, because now we're in this growing digital era and it's just going to happen more frequently. Were you just the massive size, though, of this outage that has happened? Is this shocking to you?
It was shocking to me when it happened with WannaCry. WannaCry was a cybersecurity attack that happened years ago. And the impacts were worldwide. They were global. They impacted health facilities in Britain. The huge shipping lanes, Maersk, was impacted. It was literally all over the world. And there's all books written about this. Ever since that happened, I suspected that this connectivity is going to provide great vulnerabilities, and it has. So again, Log4j, SolarWinds, and now this, it doesn't surprise me. The question is, how are we going to move past this? How are we going to try to make this outage proof if you can?
What can we learn from it, and what are we doing to prevent it from happening again? Yeah. Okay. Mike, is there anything else that I did not ask you that we should talk about?
Well, I guess the big thing is, how long, right? So I assume that the White House is going to have to come out with something about this very shortly. I know that a lot of municipalities, New York City is already up there talking about the impact to healthcare. And that's one of the big issues in the hospital. I would assume that elective surgeries are going to be put on hold for a little while. The question is whether, in an emergency situation, emergency surgery, what are the things that the hospital is going to do? The hospitals usually have a pretty robust reservoir of people who understand what to do when you don't have the technology available. But again, I think we're going to see these impacts for a little while. But I'm looking forward to the White House explaining not only what happened, who it affected, but how long.
Right. Yeah. We will definitely be looking for that as well, and hopefully get some answers.
Right.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. If I need a follow-up or talk to you later today, would you?
I'm here all day. I'm here
Okay.
all day.
Thank you so much for your insight. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Rachel. Good questions. That metaphor that you used was excellent.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good. Thank you. Bye-bye.